Hello everyone, my name is Tim Healey. I work for Coventry City Council. I work in the Performance and Planning Directorate. So previously had worked in public health and various other roles in data in Coventry. And my presentation is called How Councils Use Acorn 2. I did do a presentation previously on OAB's law and how we'd used Acorn to be able to identify that about 50% of the people who were likely to be affected by cold and damp in their houses were actually private rented sector people. So we were able to use Acorn to do that. So Acorn isn't always about marketing, but sometimes it is, and this is a marketing example. So those people know fostering. Fostering works. There's a private sector in fostering. So local authorities are in competition with private sector people. So if you want to become a foster carer, you've got a choice. You can go to the private sector option or you can come to the local authority for this. And these are examples of private fostering agencies that you can go to. But it's things like, you can go down your high street and sign up to become a foster carer. And compared to this, the local authority looks a little bit sort of down at heel and a little bit municipal, What I was interested in here, though, is that we currently have 360 children placed in foster care in Coventry. And it's split 70-30 pretty much between the local authority and the private sector provider for us. Now, the average cost of an external foster home provision is £783 a week compared to the in-house, which costs £414. So, quick bit of sums. If I can steal 50 of those people, I can save the local authority nearly £1 million a year. So this is quite an important thing for us to be able to think about how we're going to do. But how might we go about doing this? And this is the recurring theme from today. This is a personalisation message here. And someone once said that if data is the new oil, then local councils are like finding oil in the North Sea again. And I thought I'd go and check that. I think originally I used to say this was Saudi Arabia, but I kind of got into trouble for using Saudi Arabia as an example. Don't know why. But I think it was me actually that said that. So I'm claiming that quote. And so we do have a lot of data. We have a lot of data. In Coventry, we've got 40 different client record management systems. And guess what? Do they talk to each other? The hell they do. So interestingly, central government has power to integrate what it knows about us via the Digital Economy Act 2017. Anyone else? Hands up, anyone's heard of the Digital Economy Act 2017? Oh, informed audience. This leads to the creation of a statistical population database, which is essentially a single record, like a client record management system for the whole nation. And we'll have seen recently the digital identity card being mooted, and a lot of concern about the digital identity card. So, well, how are they going to use this data? How are they going to preserve my individual? How are they going to do this? Well, they're already doing it, ladies and gentlemen. They're already protecting that information. They already have this. So it is a client record management system for the whole nation. And the Digital Economy Act allowed government departments to be able to share data between them. So your healthcare records can be joined together with your tax records and they can create a whole lot of information about you. But local councils, we don't have this power. So we're a little bit stuck, really. And I'm very interested to try and get a sense of who our customers are by doing this. And it's very difficult when you haven't got a single client record management system. But I want to just give you some examples, really, of trying to understand, to get a better sense of who our customers are by integrating data that we have about them, plus other information that you can bring in to help with that personalization journey. And this is a very simple waste example. Looking at waste, what this is that this is this particular one is about booking our refuse tip in Coventry. Now, to be able to book a visit to the tip in Coventry, you've got to have a One Coventry account with the council. And then you've got to navigate quite a labyrinthine process to be able to book when you can go and visit the tip. This is a new system. We bought that in response to COVID-19. But previously to that, you could just rock up to our tip and just tip your waste. Now you need to book it. So we're having a look now to have a look at how many bookings you get by, in this case, index of multiple deprivation rank. And there's this beautiful correlation. So the more affluent you are, the more times you use the tip. And my waste colleagues will tell me, oh yes, Mr. Healey, well, there is a reason for that. And that's because the poor people don't have cars. Well, I'm here to tell you, poor people do have cars, particularly if you're from Coventry, which is the centre of the motor industry. We have the highest rate of car ownership per head of the population than anywhere in Europe. So that's not true. And the second, of course, they have bigger gardens, more waste. But we have a garden waste thing. So there is something going on here that says that somehow our systems, our processes are actually preventing people from starting to access services. Other examples, this is I think every local authority's got one of these. It's called GoCV. It's our loyalty card, if you like, for doing this. But what we've been able to do is start to, this is the dashboard that the service has built for it. And we're starting to give the service a little bit more of an idea. Now, the important thing with this is, just like we saw it a minute ago, by trying to identify those individuals and what their deprivation levels were where they were living, you can bring in information. If you have a postcode from someone, you can look up their IMD score, can't you? More importantly, if you have their postcode, you look up what the ethnicity of the area that they live in, down to output area level. That's 250 households. So you do quite a lot of work by just using a single piece of information like a postcode to try and create the picture, because we don't have a good picture because of the 40 different client record management systems that we've got. But in this particular case, Stu, you'll be pleased to note, we can actually do this then by using Acorn. So the Acorn, our Acorn data is part of this in their client record management system, and it automatically tells us the Acorn categorization of people who use the service, as well as index of multiple deprivation and various other things that we can do. I wanted to talk about some of the interesting things that we've been doing similarly to this. So this is, it says startup there, but what it really means, this is send. So these are children who have been referred into the council's send system for assessment. And what's interesting here, we've been using just a couple of these flags here are likelihood ratios. So we've been using a likelihood ratio to be able to determine whether or not this is an exceptional or an unexceptional fact here. So we know, for example, here that Asian Indian in the referral process has been flagged because its likelihood ratio is 0.53, which is low. What's interesting here is that white British it doesn't get a flag, but it is 1.17, it's quite high. If we actually take the population here of school students and not the population of children 0 to 15, it's a different population base, that would get the flag for that. And what this is showing us, I have a slide that says this, oh, maybe not. What this is showing us is that we are actually getting inappropriate referrals for white children to go into our send service. And we know this because they're triaged out at the very first stage of this. So we've been able to do analysis like this at different stages in their journey through this. And we know that we get a large number of referrals of white kids and they get triaged out straight away. What the service does about that, what that means, it's difficult for me, I don't really know. But it's something for the service to think about. And this is what Paul was saying about, it's not really my job to tell them how to run their service, but I can point out something like this and they can have a look at seeing what they're doing. So one of the things that we're trying to do in Coventry is to create a minimum data set from all of our customers. And across our 40 client record management systems, let's collect a core set of data. Date of birth, sex, ethnic group, disability, armed forces service for us, and postcode. Because postcode unlocks such a lot of other information. Now, a lot of my services would say, I'm sorry, Mr. Healey, it makes no difference. I'm sorry, the ethnic origin of my customer makes no difference to me in terms of the way I deliver my service. The tip is an equalities haven because it doesn't matter what your ethnicity, you can come to my tip and you can tip your rubbish. But what's interesting about that is that when you start to delve into it, you can start to see, actually, people from minority ethnic groups aren't using your service as much as some other groups are, and that's what those likelihood ratios start to be able to tell us. So getting a better sense of who our customers are until we get better source data. So we want to get better source data. We want to have that in our client record management system because that would be great because we can do a little bit like the Go CV thing. We can do really good analysis of customers because we've got information about them. But so many of our services don't collect the minimum data set, so they can't do that. As an interim, because we have postcode for a lot of things, we can do a number of things. And this is so we use postcode will tap you into Acorn for us. That's really helpful. Postcode can look at paychecks. Stu, I should have used the paycheck number for the tip booking, shouldn't I? Because we did do that. And we could see that people with high average household incomes were using the tip a lot more than people who are on the low incomes. We can look at IMD. IMD came out last week. Everyone had a busy week looking at IMD last week? I was on leave. Great. And then also census data, because of the output area level of that, particularly for ethnic group, is quite important. And we can do that. So what are we learning? These are just some of the learnings that we've come out as we're starting to think in this particular way. So we know that more affluent citizens book tip visits. White British children refer to our send service. This is one that we've done. So we haven't got a ULEZ in Coventry, but what we do have is that we have bus gates and we restrict access to particular parts of it. We've got one bus gate in the city that earns £1 million a year, one bus gate in fines. And what we know is that newly arrived citizens are more likely to be fined for lane and gate infractions. And this is a new one. This is right outside my office. I walked past this the other day. I thought I'll take that photograph. Because this is the sign that tells you can't go through here without getting a fine. And what we've had to do is, as a result of this analysis, is that we've put this sign in it that says, what this sign means is buses and authorised vehicles only, entry to Warwick Lane restricted. So the council have paid for those signs to be put up to stop people who don't know what this means. Because what is a blue sign? It's a statutory sign. And so this says, does this mean banned or does this mean allowed? Who knows? Actually, round the corner, there was a temporary bus stop and it said, alight only. And I thought, I don't know what alight means. And I had to ask the bus driver, I said, what's a light? Is that get on or get off? I don't know. So this is something, now if you come from, if you're a newly arrived, part of a newly arrived community and you're coming from the country that you've come from, you're just going to drive past this, aren't you? And that's what's been happening for those people. So it's an interesting thing that we're doing. Anyway, I said I'd talk about fostering. Let's go back to fostering. Becoming a foster carer takes about a year. So has anyone been a foster carer? Anyone tried it? It's a lengthy process. There's a lot of risk involved. Risky children at risk and so on. You need to be really careful. So it takes about a year to do this, from inquiry to becoming a parent. But by building a better picture of applicants using postcode to pull in data about applicants, we can now see who has responded to our current promotions, who is it so we're doing promotional activities, we're trying to steal that 50 people. Who has responded to that? We can then track them through their journey because we can look at the cohort that are on the on-ramp, after the first triage, after the second triage, after all this process. So you can look at the customer journey, you can see who it is that falls out. What we've also been able to do, we've been able to profile our existing 249 foster carers. So we actually now know what it takes to become a successful foster carer through this process and who are the kinds of people who do that. And then we can compare that with our on-ramp. So we've just done a massive piece of promotion. We've got a really large number of people. Quite a lot of those people are being triaged out for this because we get too many applications from people who have no real chance of becoming a foster carer. So we're wasting our promotional effort, we're wasting our effort. So we need to target those Acorn types that we know are more like the ones that we already have, and to remove barriers for those people who aren't like that. So it gives us a two-strand approach. So two ways of being able to look at this. We are doing both of these. So we're trying to get more of these, and we're trying to retain more of these. And how do we do that? How are we doing it? Okay. So the Acorn types that are most likely to be successful are 4M family renters, 3G settled suburbia, and 2D commuter belt wealth. Now these, for me, And Acorn Futures, I think, tells me this. I'm going to introduce another concept to you, which is called the life course. And it seems to me that 4M family renters aspire to becoming 2D people. This is a journey in their life course from being 4M family renters, 3G settled suburbia, to 2D commuter wealth. Belt wealth. And I think that they are the same people moving forward that. Now, there's another concept to introduce to you, which is a marketing concept called the up escalator. So if you're advertising a product for 17-year-old young people, you don't portray 17-year-old people in your advertisements. You portray 21-year-olds, because all 17-year-olds want to be 21. That's an up escalator. And it's the same thing with social class, and particularly with these kind of things. So what we're seeing here is that we are trying now, by looking at what it is that would be attractive to people who are 2Ds, we're using those images, we're using that language to be able to attract people who are aspiring to be those people, rather than pitching it at the level that they're currently at. And so Acorn Future shows that 12% of 4Gs will have moved up to a higher group in just 5 years, and 5.3% of 3Gs will have moved up to a higher group in 5 years. If we pitch promotions stylistically in terms of imagery, tone, cultural references and touch points, at 2D using modes and methods identified for 3Gs and 4Ms, which is the life course escalator, will work in our favour. That's how we're going to go about doing that. So we're using the media that these people look at, but the imagery that we're using is the imagery from 2D. And I put these up. Everyone knows these. That's what 2D looks like, 3D, 4M. Okay. So back to fostering. We don't want to miss out on those applicants from Acorn groups that we get a lot of applications from, but who don't currently succeed. And these are 5 Rs and 6 S's. And we know that these are these people. So we get a lot of people who are coming into this. And one of the things about fostering that people who work in fostering will know quite well, the financial remuneration for being a foster carer is not an insignificant motivator. Particularly for those people in our community who are used to exploiting their caring. So I come from a long generation of Irish families, Irish family, and Irish people have traditionally been working in nursing and so on, where our cultural upbringing makes it so that we actually have an empathetic kind of upbringing, which allows us to be able to exploit that to earn a living. And so that's why you get a lot of Irish nurses, for example, and a lot of Irish nurses in my family. So we really want to try and figure out why it is that these people fail, and actually starting to look back at our systems. Back to fostering. How do those people think? So we know that the cash is a motivation for those people. That's going to be really good for them. So the message that we will say to those people is, yeah, look, you can earn £800 a week per child by doing this if you really wanted to go about doing that. But there are a couple of barriers that will prevent them from doing that. And part of that is the process that we go through. It takes a year. You've got to plan it out for a year. It's a nightmare to try and do. We can highlight the motivators like the finances, because that's important to those people in those low income groups. But in the application process, what in our application process is a barrier here? So do they understand that? Are they worried about finances? Have we told enough people up front that the finances are going to be really important here? You will be remunerated for doing this. You're not going to be out of pocket. But do we do follow-up? Do we do follow-through? What support do they need? Do we mentor those people? Do we allocate a member of staff to sit with them, to coach them through this process? And we don't do that at the moment. And is there some financial aid that we can use to be able to do that, to help people go through that? And we think that, another thing, we think a lot of the people from these lower income groups fail because they basically don't have a spare bedroom. And spare bedroom is an important part of that, but guess what? We can find out about spare bedroom, and we can remove the spare bedroom barrier by using census data, because there's a spare room indicator in the census. So we can identify those people who are unlikely to have a spare bedroom and try not to persuade them to come and join us, because they're going to fail later down the line. So we can start to geographically target our promotions and our marketing in order to be able to avoid those people who are likely not to have a spare bedroom. But here's the thing, and coming right the way back to what I said at the beginning about the Digital Economy Act, that we're not joined up. Actually, my council has everybody in the city of Coventry who has a spare bedroom, we collect it because we have the bedroom tax. But can I get my treasurer to supply me with the information in the households? No, because of GDPR. So I can't do that. Central government could do that. It would be really easy for them to do, but no, I can't do that. So that's me.